ready to talk about some Bears football? Yeah, well, I don't really know if it's Bears football, but it is preseason time. Actually, second preseason game. I didn't bother with this after the Hall of Fame game, and I think that probably makes sense, especially since the starters didn't play. But the starters did play Saturday in Buffalo against the Bills, so I'm here to talk about it. I got to start getting back into the swing of things. It's great to have football back. I'll admit, though, I was kind of distracted by the Olympics. On Saturday afternoon was the last day of the track and field competition, so watching the 4x4 relays, etc. Paying attention to that as much as the game, so I had to come back and watch the All-22 to make sure what I was kind of seeing initially made sense, pay a little bit closer attention to some things. Next thing I'll say, as far as the new kickoff rule, it's going to have to grow on me. It feels like a big overhype for not much happening right now. I mean, granted, at least they're trying something different, although the NFL's got to drop that bullshit about this is player safety. If it was about player safety, you wouldn't do the play at all. You would figure out some other alternatives. So let's not do that. Thankfully, when I was on social media during the game, I really didn't hear much about Trubisky since he played in this game as the backup for the Bills. That's good. Don't give a fuck about these shitty quarterbacks that didn't do shit in Chicago. MVP award excluded. Let's get to that same place with Justin Fields. You close the chapters of those books, Bears fans. Who gives a fuck? It is all about Caleb and the Bears now. Period. Anyways, let's talk about this, what I'd almost call the first real preseason game for the starters, at least. What was good and what are some of the concerns that I have? And I'll temper this by saying you got to be careful not to overreact too much. It is preseason. The starters basically played about a quarter. So let's not get too carried away here. Just early impressions, and that's about it. Obviously, for Bears fans, it's about Caleb Williams first and foremost, right? And legitimately, it should be. And what I wasn't sure when I was watching the game live Saturday was, is Caleb Williams passing up on open reads? Is he taking too long? Is he holding the ball too long based off of what's going on? And I'll say in general, no. He played pretty well, relatively well within the structure of the offense. He made one bad throw. If you remember the one throw on to the outside on the right to Rome Odunze, that route was undercut. That should have never been thrown, especially at the timing with which it was. That type of stuff happens. The rookie quarterback's going to figure that out. Other than that, he's pretty good, right? I do worry about how long he's willing to sit in the pocket, and sometimes he won't take that first read. Now that carries over from college. I didn't see that as much with the Saturday film, but if you're looking for positive returns from Caleb Williams, you got him on Saturday. You saw that arm talent, it's higher end. You saw that elite improv ability, all the things you were hoping for, you got to see with the limited action that he got. The interior O-line, starting O-line, was really good on Saturday. I thought Tevin Jenkins looks ready, hopefully poised to have a big contract year performance, and staying healthy for 17 games would be fantastic. I thought Coleman Shelton moved well at center, especially getting to the second level. And frankly, in terms of Matt Pryor starting at right guard, he played like he wants to start, and more importantly, played like he should start. He looked better in this game than at any point in time I saw Nate Davis last year. He was run blocking with strength and proper leverage. He was getting to the second level. He was moving well. The interior line looked good. For those that criticize the drafting of Torrey Taylor in the 4th round, he punted a couple of times in this game, and both of those punts are inside the 10-yard line. These things matter. Even as much as we're excited about the potential of what this Bears offense could become with Caleb Williams, with the weapons that they have on the outside, the reality is you're still going to have to punt a few times a game. And it is nice to have a guy that could pin a team deep. It is nice to have a guy like Taylor that could change field position like he can. You're going to be happy that the Bears spent a 4th-round pick on him, especially with what you saw with the limited action on Saturday carries over. Another thing that stood out to me was the use of Velus Jones Jr. out of the backfield. When he was drafted in the 3rd round, probably hoping he's going to provide something at wide receiver, but at a minimum be a Cordero Patterson type of returner. And neither of those have really panned out, so now you kind of go maybe the Ty Montgomery route and try to play him out of the backfield, and his speed can play well out of the backfield. And if he can give you some type of that gadget stuff, then maybe there's a reason to keep him on the 53-man roster, although I wonder, how much does that really matter? Maybe if you end up trading like a Khalil Herbert, which I don't know how likely that is, maybe there's a spot for Velus. I just don't know. It feels like they're trying to find a spot for him, and he had some moments here in the game on Saturday. And then I look at the young edge rushers, who's going to be the guy opposite Montez Sweat. You're going to say, well, what about DeMarcus Walker? I'm going to say, well, what about him? Who's going to be the guy opposite Montez Sweat when it really matters? Dominique Robinson played quite a bit early, and he had some pop. He was very active. He was hustling downfield. Daniel Hardy had a couple of sacks. He looked good. And Austin Booker was fantastic. For those Bears fans that were pounding the table for the Bears to draft him in the 4th round and then were doing backflips when they traded back up at round 5 to get him, you could see why. He bull rushes well. He's got a nice spin move that he unleashed. This guy can move. He's got a motor. He was hustling downfield just like Robinson was. Some of these young edge rushers showed up pretty well for the Bears. So quite a number of good things here. Again, not trying to overreact too much because it's a preseason, but some really good things. Now, of course, there were some concerns. First, if we want to talk about Bears football, what epitomizes that more than taking potential red zone trips and touchdown opportunities and turning them into field goals? You saw a couple of those with the first unit offense. You got to convert those into touchdowns, especially early in the game like that, because if that's in the regular season, you're taking an opportunity to be up maybe 10-0 or 14-0 and turn it into 6-0 really is not that much of a lead, right? You got to find a way to execute better in the red zone. Nate Davis being MIA, I'm sure he's not going to get cut because of his contract this year, but he's worthless. Like I said, was Matt Pryor really any worse than what Nate Davis has been so far? I'm just saying. Speaking of the trenches, and they're going to be important, obviously, this year too, right? We talked quite a bit about the defense and saw some good things from the young edge rushers. On the flip side, I wasn't so sold on Javon Dexter Sr. and Zach Pickens. I know Dexter had a tackle for loss, but that was more of cleaning up somebody else's work. And then Zach Pickens had a sack, but you really didn't feel much presence from them. Zach Pickens primarily played against the second stringers for the Bills, and he didn't feel like he got a ton of upfield penetration, especially early on in the snap. Dexter, same thing, looked a little slow at moments coming off the snap, carrying back to his time at Florida. He just didn't have much of a presence. One or both of those guys is going to have to play well on that defensive line. Andrew Billings looked solid in the action that he had. You need one of these guys to be able to get upfield and penetrate and disrupt the quarterback and disrupt the pocket on the interior. And if you can't get that out of this cover 2 type of system, you're going to be in trouble. Tyler Scott, your, presumptive wide receiver 4, had a fumble in the second half. Didn't really see anything out of him. Not a big fan of dropping the defensive ends into zone coverage. I got to be honest there. You saw it happen a couple times with Robinson, saw it happen a few times with Austin Booker. It almost feels like back in the day, the NFL Films clip, right, of Bill Cowher talking to Greg Lloyd. You've got one job. Rush the quarterback! Rush the quarterback! Don't be getting all cute and fucking exotic here. Take your fucking edge rushers and bend their ears back and fucking go get the quarterback. That's what they're there to do. Not be sitting, dropping back aimlessly in zone coverage. That's stupid. And the last thing I'll touch on in terms of concerns, Darnell Wright. To me, it wasn't great. He struggled a little bit with speed rush. in this game on Saturday. Again, I know it's the preseason, and I thought he had a solid, not spectacular, but solid rookie season. But I think he got, if I remember correctly, got flagged for a holding penalty. He's got to be a little better than this, right? Like, I thought Braxton Jones held it pretty well on the left side. Darnell Wright was kind of shaky on the right side. Hopefully it's just some preseason work that's got to get done. But, some concerns in the trenches on both sides. It is a little worrisome because you feel like when you look at this team right now, that's where the weaknesses are. It's in the offensive line and the defensive line. Traditionally not a great place that you want to have weaknesses at, right? Other than that, it was still fun to watch preseason football. Like I said, even with the distractions of the Olympics, even with it being August, it takes a little bit to get back into the flow, but football's here, and hopefully Bears fans in a couple weeks when the regular season starts, we can start feeling excited for realsies.